Hello and welcome to the SATLUJ TV podcast. Now, we reported last week how the Sikh community gave evidence to the powerful and influential Tom Landy Human Rights Commission in Washington. And the more eagle-eyed of our viewers might have noticed today's guest sitting in the front row behind the speakers at that very commission. Well, the Commission heard extensive material about India's illegal intimidation, threats and even murder of diaspora Sikhs the world over under its policy labelled under the legal term transnational repression. Well, to discuss what the committee heard during that very hearing and the recommendations that came out of the hearing, I'm joined today by our regular guest, Dr. Bakshish Singh Sandhu. Dr. Sandhu, welcome and thank you for joining us once again today.
Thank you, Angus, for having me on your program.
Well, a pleasure as always. Now, Dr. Sandhu, can we start by understanding first what is your understanding of what transnational repression is and why the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission would be so interested in this area?
So, my understanding is the same as that delineated by Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. They define the transnational repression as the tactics which are used by foreign governments. They use that to reach beyond their borders, to harm, intimidate, threaten, harass, coerce the individuals. So what the governments are doing, they are targeting individuals who are dissidents or who are their political opponents or diaspora communities to basically threaten them. So they cannot speak their mind, limit their right to free speech. The tactics are, basically threatening them, extortion, intimidation, this kind of stuff.
So it's very clear then that transnational repression does cover a large range of methods, ranging from the very nuanced and very subtle to the overt and even to plain and simple murder, assassination. Can you give us some examples then that were raised in the Commission of some of these actual, the real sharp end ones, the assassinations and the attempted assassinations?
This topic was brought out at the commission hearing, and they allocated most of the time to the transnational repression, assassination of Sikhs. There was discussion that Hardeep Singh Nijjar was assassinated in Surrey, Canada, where he was the president, and some gunmen came and they showered his car or his truck with 34 bullets, and he was killed on the spot. A video was made, and that video was sent to India. The agents of Indian government, employee of RAW agency, which was subsequently sent to the US, to Nikhil Gupta, who did the footwork to hire a hitman. So Nikhil Gupta was hired by RAW agent or RAW employee, and Nikhil Gupta hired a hitman who happened to be DEA agent of the US intelligence agency. We are thankful to Almighty God because this was foiled. Otherwise, would have been a very serious and dangerous situation. Other example that was discussed was the Avatar Singh Khanda in Birmingham. He died a mysterious death on June 15. And then his diagnosis was mentioned as a leukemia. However, clinically speaking, it appears to be very remote that somebody like Mr. Khanda, who was very healthy appearing, would have died in 2 days from leukemia. I think the slides they made or the pathology they have said could be from other causes like poisoning, in which your blood clots and then the cells are distorted. And they discussed other methods that India is using, that some of the Sikh activists are targeted even in Britain. And the FBI warnings. There has been warnings from FBI in the United States, America, to the American Sikh Khalistan activists that you should be careful, your life may be in danger, and you are being targeted. So these are the things were discussed, and most of the emphasis was on the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar and the attack on Gurpratwan Singh Pannu, who is Sikhs for Justice legal advisor and co-founder of Sikhs for Justice.
So one of the important reasons for the existence of this commission is the fact that it is there to collect information and data and then form recommendations to the US administration. That is one of its key reasons for its existence. I would like, therefore, then, if I may, of course, the commission itself had various questions submitted to it. And if I may, I'd like to go through some of those specific questions, and maybe you can give us your analysis of what was discussed in response to those questions. And the first question was, this hearing aimed to address specific cases and examples of transnational repression. In the case of India, the government of India is openly hostile to those it views as in opposition, particularly against American Sikhs. What do you recommend the US Congress do to prevent and or hold the government of India accountable? What was your analysis of this, Dr. Sandhu?
So, firstly, regarding, you had asked a question regarding the purpose of Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. The purpose of the commission is protection of human rights. And the one of the processes in which human rights are being violated is transnational repression. Like, for example, this is being done through abductions. I'm adding to the definition of transnational repression through killings of dissidents or the opponents, abductions, enforced disappearance, and unlawful removal, and also carrying a digital surveillance and targeting the relatives of Sikh activists. So what the government recommendation, what are the recommendations made by the commission to the US government is that the commission is very serious about human rights violation. The commission co-chair was very clear on their goal. They want to basically stop the human rights violation, and the recommendation is legislative action. So they want that the definition should be widened, and domestic protection should be carried out through Transnational Repression Policy Act. So there was a Transnational Repression Policy Act made in 2024 February, and that's under a Transnational Repression Reporting Act, in which the agencies are supposed to report to the government that how transnational repression is being carried out. And they should be more strict towards this. The second recommendation was targeted sanctions. The commission recommended that there should be targeted sanctions, and the same recommendation was made by USCIRF, United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. So the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom has recommended targeted sanctions, right? Individuals like Vikas Yadav, who hired Nikhil Gupta, and Nikhil Gupta in turn did the footwork and hired a hitman. So they should be targeted. They also recommended that the agencies, just like a research and analysis wing of India's intelligence agency, should be targeted directly. These are the recommendations made by USCIRF, and the same thing, basically, Commission is supporting that these actions should be taken. Other thing they recommended was enforcement coordination. For example, the law enforcement agencies, law enforcement individuals in the United States of America should be made aware of the laws, and they should be trained on how to recognize, report, and execute on the recommendations, and how to basically detain people who are carrying out transnational repression. It's just for their training to make them more aware so they can recognize easily what's happening. Otherwise, Interpol oversight. See, what has been happening, that Interpol is being abused by countries like India. So they have recommended that Interpol oversight should be increased. This is to ensure that Interpol does not become a tool of autocratic regimes to pursue dissidents internationally. So what the governments do, they use this Interpol, and then the Interpol thinks, these guys are culprits. So Interpol issues red alert and the people are arrested. But those are the false information submitted by the governments to Interpol. So Interpol has now become much more, let's say, alert, much more suspicious of the requests they are receiving. Yet some of the cases they are denying. The other, I think the most important thing that was recommended was diplomatic leverage. Raising the transnational repression concerns to bilateral and multilateral diplomatic channels. So the pressure can be applied from the people, applied on the governments and agencies who carry out transnational repression. These were the specific recommendations of Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, how to stop this repression and religious freedom violations of people who are activists or who are dissidents, opposition, human rights organizations, and their activists.
Now, another commission that exists that we do talk about on a regular basis is the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF, as it's known. And this commission meets on a regular basis. And of course, a lot of what is discussed in that commission overlaps with what is discussed at the Tom Lantos Commission. And the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom have heard a lot of this same evidence. And of course, what they were approached about, what evidence was presented in their commission was also presented in this same commission. Could you talk us through some of those same recommendations and I guess some of the links between these two commissions? But some of the recommendations, firstly, they did talk about a recent visit by Tulsi Gabbard, and what she was involved in, but also there was also talk about arms sales. Of course, this is a huge area between India and the United States, and there were discussions and recommendations specifically about arms sales. Could you talk about that whole area and what you heard in the commission about those specific areas?
That's a good question, Angus. So what happened that earlier this year, United States Director of National Intelligence went to India to discuss about transnational repression and how the Sikh American activists are being targeted. But over there, what happened was actually that the Indian Defense Minister boldly asked the U.S. government to take action against Sikh for Justice. And they also asked that Sikh for Justice should be declared as unlawful organization, and they recommended that the Sikh for Justice should be declared as a terrorist organization. But the director of national intelligence, Gabbard, stated that I'm not here for that. I'm here to discuss with you intelligence sharing, defense, counterterrorism, and transnational threats. So she said that we are here to stop the transnational threats or discuss the issue of transnational threats on Americans. That's what I'm here to discuss about. And she did not let the Indian counterparts to carry out any further discussion regarding basically blocking the Sikh for Justice or declaring them as a terrorist organization. However, in opposition to that, or in reference to that, Gurpratap Singh Pannu, who is a legal counsel for Sikh for Justice, has written an extensive letter to the U.S. Department of State, which is directed to Marco Rubio, who's running now the Department of State, and in that it has been requested that India's RA agency, Research and Analysis Wing, should be declared as a terrorist organization. And under that, there are several categories. Like, for example, the RA agency is an agency starting from Prime Minister Modi, who is directing Amit Shah, who is India's Home Minister, and they have been directing Ajit Doval. Ajit Doval, in conjunction with Samant Goel, who was at that time in 2023 head of the RA agency. They hired a field agent whose name is Vikas Yadav. Vikas Yadav basically tapped Nikhil Gupta. Nikhil Gupta had criminal charges against him regarding money laundering and arms trafficking, and he wanted his cases to go away. So Gupta hired a hitman who was DEA agent. So this how the Indian government and the RA agencies, they cooperate with each other. They hire gangsters to carry out the repression and transnational assassinations and assassination attempts to American Khalistan Sikh activists. And we are basically asking the US government, the RA, the Research and Analysis Wing, that's the organization, should be declared a terrorist organization. And there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of proof. It's reasonable to make this demand, and we are very hopeful that this will be accepted. And the RA agency, what the RA agencies does that all the consulate offices in worldwide countries, they are basically houses where they make plans to do the basically programming and planning and execution of transnational repression and assassinations against Sikhs. So that's what we are bringing out, that agency that carries out such activities, let's say for sake of discussion on America. So what RA is doing is attack on American democracy and is attack on American citizens and American sovereignty. So this should be paid serious attention. And I think this is getting traction, and we'll see how the Department of State, Mr. Marco Rubio, takes this and what they do about it.
It has become very clear that India and its intelligence agency RAW have always seen Sikhs for Justice as a threat to their narrative and their control of the narrative. And as you refer to there regularly, that clearly they have it in for Sikhs for Justice. But let's turn this on the other way around. I mean, it's certainly the United States Commission has actually recommended, for example, that India is designated as a country of particular concern because of its transnational repression and its threat against people like Gurpratap Singh Pannu and his organisation of Sikhs for Justice. So do you think, and again, I think it's very telling that Donald Trump actually hosted at his inauguration ball. He hosted several members of Sikhs for Justice at his inauguration ball, which sends out a very, very important message to not just the world, but to India about his particular leanings towards Sikhs for Justice. Do you think, though, that Sikhs for Justice should be more involved with the US Congress and should be consulted more closely by members of Congress when it forms policy decisions relating to India?
That's a good question, Angus. So what it is, that the President Donald Trump is very serious about transnational repression, attacks on American democracy, basically the sanctity of right to free speech is being violated. So President Trump wants this to stop, and President Trump is serious. We are also basically requesting and making recommendation that in reference to transnational repression with respect to Sikhs carried out by India, we should be consulted because we are on the forefront. We are the targets of India's transnational repression and assassination. Therefore, any programs or policy those are outlined, they should include Sikh for Justice delegates because we have first-hand information, we have tons and tons of materials, how the Sikhs are being approached, how they are coerced, how they intimidated, threatened, harassed, and money laundering, lot of stuff that's going on. The government may not completely know. And the President Trump basically has India in its place because President Biden has requested India that they should give the name of the people who are carrying transnational repression in America in reference to Gurpratap Singh Pannu's foiled assassination attempt. But India said, okay, we'll make a high-level committee. But by the time that Biden's term was going to end, India had not provided any information. So, but then the Biden administration pressed again, and they gave a name of one person who's Vikas Yadav. But the DEA people already knew about him. So India has not provided any information. But Trump administration is tough and pursuing with basically a goal to stop this.
So as a final question, Dr. Sandhu, news that has just filtered out that India has announced its new chief to take control of the research and analysis wing, RAW. And that is, of course, this guy, Parag Jain. Now, Parag Jain comes with a bit of history. He comes with a history where he has been implicated, amongst many other crimes, of the murder, the extrajudicial killing of a young Sikh back in 1993 in the Punjab. He, as a member of the Punjab police force, he was implicated, and evidence exists as collected by NSAF that he was involved in at least one extrajudicial killing of a young Sikh during that dreadful period in the 1990s. What is your reaction then to the announcement that Parag Jain is to be the new chief of RAW? What message do you think that sends out to the world?
So Parag Jain was working under Sumant Goyal, who was the head of our agency. Jain has been involved in carrying out the planning, execution, transnational repressions, and assassination attempts in several countries, including Pakistan, UK, America, not so much America, but mostly like Canada. So he has been instrumental in making policies, making sure they're executed. So he is targeted in the sense that his name is in the report that he has been carrying out these human rights violations, attacks on people, planning all this executions of human rights violation and transnational repression against the Sikhs. He is one of the let's say prime architects of the repression that India is carrying on. So that's why, because of record of involvement in transnational repression, he has been upgraded. He has been given promotion to become the head of research and analysis wing. So we'll see how the U.S. Department of State and Marco Rubio take our request regarding declaration of RAW agency as a terrorist organization.
Worrying times. But there we must leave it, and we will be talking again with Dr. Sandhu soon to continue our discussion. Dr. Sandhu, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us once again.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I appreciate you having this program and giving me an opportunity to express my views regarding my nation.
A pleasure as always. And thank you for watching the SATLUJ TV podcast. We will see you next time.